Imagine a sun-scorched town called St. George, Utah, nestled in a desert valley where red cliffs rise like sentinels, the Virgin River snakes through sandstone, and the air hums with heat and the faint buzz of cicadas. Here, in a stucco bungalow with a tiled roof and a yard of prickly pears swaying in the breeze, Mike, Sullivan, and Lori Evans lived their 34 years of marriage a sandstone slab, once solid, now fractured, until, at 57, in the searing glare of July 2023, they shattered. Not with a roar of rage or a deluge of tears, but with a quiet split, like a rock cleaved by time, a moment where they stood in the dining room, the AC humming, and felt the pieces fall. They'd raised a daughter, filled a home with the rhythm of desert life, and now, in the stillness, the slab lay bare. He was a geologist, his hands rough from picks, mapping the earth's bones. She was a painter, her fingers flecked with color, brushing canvases that captured the wild. By their mid-50s, their stone had crumbled to sand, leaving only the drone of wind where voices once danced. Picture this: two souls stepping from a broken mold into a world they'd forgotten how to shape, Mike with his hammer, Lori with her brush, until, by 60, they sculpt new lives in the blazing, boundless light of the Southwest. Step back to 1988 and see the meeting at a dig site near Zion National Park, the air thick with dust and the clink of tools, the sun hammering down on a sprawl of red rock. Mike, 24, leans against a boulder, his khaki shirt streaked with grit, his black hair matted under a cap, a pickaxe swinging from his belt. Lori, 24 too, sits by a tarp, her denim skirt dusted with clay, her auburn hair tied with a scarf, a sketchbook open to a half-painted cliff. Their eyes catch. His a deep green, hers a warm violet, and he trudges over, boots crunching shale, flashing a shy grin. They talk about the canyons catching the dusk, about his love for cracking the earth's secrets, about her joy in painting its scars. He trades a fossil for a sketch, their hands brushing over the stone, and asks her to share a soda as the sky burns pink, the desert's hum softening. She nods, her laugh a ripple in the heat, and says yes. A year later, in June 1989, they marry in a slot canyon off Snow Canyon, his vest stiff with canvas, her dress a swirl of her own hues, the air sharp with sage as friends toss pebbles. He promises to unearth her days. She vows to color his nights. For decades, they carve that vow deep. Here their daughter, Grace, burst in like a flash flood in 1991, a fierce spark with Mike's lean build and Lori's vivid eyes, racing through the house like a gust across the dunes. Mike swaps dawn digs for dusk lessons, showing Grace how to chip a rock, their shadows stretching across the yard as the hammer rings. Lori mixes her paints, teaches Grace to blend, the bungalow alive with her giggles and the swipe of brushes, the air rich with turpentine and dust. In 1993, they buy the stucco, a sun-bleached shell with a clay hearth, a porch where heat shimmers, and a kitchen smelling of sage and bread. Mike builds a shed, his tools clanking, grit thick as he sorts specimens, the cliffs echoing his taps. Lori sets up her easel, her canvases stacking high, mesas, skies, her garden a patch of yucca and agave braving the sun. Picture summer dusk, Grace chasing lizards, Mike grilling pork, Lori hanging sun catchers that gleam like stars, the red cliffs a dark wall beyond. Money runs tight, droughts parch the well, but the house stands, a mold for their shared stone. Feel the fractures widen. By their 40s, the slab cracks. Grace leaves for Provo in 2010, studying art history, her room a hold of rocks and paint tubes, the silence seeping into the stucco. The bungalow grows still, the porch warps lonely, the hearth cold. Mike heads out earlier, his Jeep rumbling through dawn haze, his voice a grunt when he trudges home, Hands scratched. Long day, Lori, straight as deep. She paints longer, her studio in town a refuge, her chatter thinning to sighs as she slumps into a chair. Busy shift, Mike, folks want fast now. He tries. Let's hike Red Mountain, feel the sand, or how about supper at Cliffside? But she shakes her head, too drained, maybe next time. They eat apart, him with a cold taco by the shed, her with soup in the studio, the garden brittle, their words lost in the wind off the valley. By 2021, he takes the den. It's caught hard under a tarp, the window baking with a view they can't climb. Since the shatter in July 2023. Mike's 57, his hands gnarled like the rock he splits, his hair graying under his cap. Lori's 57 too, her fingers stiff from years of paint, her violet eyes soft behind smudged glasses. He's just mapped a fault. Its lines etched in his pad. When he steps inside, sweat streaking his shirt, and finds her at the table, brushing a canvas, her tea warm. We're not whole anymore, he says, his voice rough as the cliffs outside. She looks up, her stroke still, her breath a puff in the heat. I know, Mike, we're just shards, aren't we? He nods, slow as a stone falling. Yeah, Lori, we are. It's time to let it go. They sit by the hearth, its ashes warm, the wind rattling the panes, and agree 34 years is a slab split through. No clash, no sobs, just a core too worn to hold. They part with a grip, her hand hot on his, a last piece dropped. Watch the live sculpt. They sell the bungalow, too laden with dust, and split the cash even. Lori moves to a loft above her studio, a tight space with a slanted roof, her easel glowing by a window streaked with sand. Mike rents a shack near the river, a rough box with adobe walls, a stool facing the cliffs, a rack for his tools. Grace calls from Provo. Dad, Mom, why now, what cracked? They stumble. It didn't crack hard, kid. It just fell apart, they say. Friends split. Some stay with Lori, buying her art. Others meet Mike for beers at George's. The first year is a haze. Mike maps in a blur. His faults clear, but his heart loose. Night spent rocking on that stool. The rivers trickle a shard he can't lift. Lori paints in a fog. Her canvas is bright, but her soul slack. Evenings by her window, the dusk a veil over a town she can't hew. They miss Grace's trump, each other's rustle. The house has grown in a storm. See the shapes rise in 2024. At 58, Mike joins a canyoneering club. A flare after a hiker brags about the slots. His hands trading picks for ropes, rappelling down Paria Canyon's walls. He slips, his grip shaky from years on flat ground, but he descends on, hooked on the drop, the scrape of rock on his palms, the cliffs towering red. The crew is rugged, retirees, a young guide, a widow named Ruth who rappels with a steady pull and a flask of tea. They meet weekends, threading narrows, the sun baking their backs, ravens circling above. Mike buys gear, a harness, worn boots, and drops solo one dawn, the desert waking in gold as he lands a ledge. It's not swift, but it stands, a life carved anew. Lori, at 58, takes up sandboarding, renting a board from a shop on Bluff Street, her hands swapping brushes for straps, sliding the dunes near Coral Pink. She tumbles, her legs wobbly from years in an easel, but she rides on, drawn to the rush, the grit on her skin, her first run a wild streak down the slope. Feel them soar by 59. Mike sells his Jeep, buys a camper, a tan Outback with a rack, and hauls it to Kolob Canyon, his ropes rattling, the cliffs rising sharp against a blazing sky. He's not fast. Climbers pass, Ruth teases, but speed's not it. The descent is, the rock a new fault to trace. He starts a journal, rocks and ropes, scribbling about divorce, drops, and the rush of open air, his words bold as his old maps. Geologists read it, Then strangers, folks in Moab, Kanab, a guy in Nevada saying, "I'm rappelling too." Lori trades her car for a bike, a red Trek with a basket, and pedals the desert to Snow Canyon, her board strapped tight, the heat hot on her face. She joins a poetry class, crafting verses, dunes, dawns, her hand steady with a new ink. Grace visits Mike, sees the harness, grins, "You're falling, Dad." She sees Lori's poem, hugs her, "You're soaring, Mom." At 60, they sculpt in light. Mike cuts geology days, leads canyoneering trips, slots, tales, his voice deep, his boots crusted with sand and stories. He camps at Buckskin Gulch one fall, drops under stars, wakes to a dawn that fires the rock orange, his camper a perch on the rim. Lori scales back the studio, boards for joy, slides, spins, her poem stacking up, read beside her art. She bikes to Sand Hollow, paints the dunes, the sun sharp on her tongue. They're not rich. His shack smells of dust and rope, her loft of paint and paper. They're not famed. His journal has 510 readers. Her verses stay local. But they're Mike and Lori, vivid, alive, remade. They meet once, by chance at a trailhead in 2026, him with a carabiner, her with a paintbrush. They grin, swap a line, part warm, two lives freshly shaped. Divorce at 57 shattered us bare, they'd say now, their voices bright. It let us sculpt again, stronger. Picture America's deserts, St. George's sands to every wild stretch, where couples like Mike and Lori shatter every day. Gray divorces aren't dust, they're chisels. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Their tale is real, raw, radiant, reshaped. If it carves you, subscribe. Every day, a new story. People like us, sculpting after 55. You're not alone. Let's mold your path together.